You want to start talking?
Yeah, I got coffee.
Good. Me too.
I think I figured out how to make coffee better. I think there's more to making coffee than just taking a handful of beans and putting it in water.
What did you change?
I went on my coffee machine and hit buttons and changed numbers, and it tastes better.
You button smashed?
I don't know what I did, but it's better. All the coffee I thought was bad, I might have been wrong.
Saving the face right now?
Yeah, it tastes better. So yeah, and I'm drinking black, so coffee from now on, and it's like you really get the full effect of what you're drinking.
It hits your belly a little differently too because it's more acidity, but it's also not as fatty. So
doesn't acid burn fat? Maybe.
I think so. I mean,
let's go.
That's science,
give me some
right?
more coffee. It's my diet. Yeah, Hayden did a podcast about coffee is healthy.
Did you listen to it?
No, I need to. It's on the list. I'm driving to North Carolina tonight, so maybe I'll listen to it.
That's a long drive.
It's like 2.5, 3 hours.
Oh, it's not bad.
Yeah, I've got to take an emergency class. I love emergency classes.
It's like a CPR class?
Yeah. I got to do fake CPR. No, it's just, like when you work on all sorts of different things and you have different types of licenses, things come up and you need to renew. And so it's a class that basically if you're working on anything pre-75, you need to have a certification, which any remodel in Floyd is not any, but most of them are around that year. Buildings we work on and Roanoke, Blacksburg, stuff like that. Typically predate 75. So you have to have a certification and it's state law. So mine's about to run up, and every 4 years I got to do it, and I'm going.
Yeah, I'm sure as a contractor, a construction company, you have to keep up with numerous.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, I don't want to go do a job and start demoing lead paint or asbestos and not know. At least taking this class, I'll know that hey guys, let's call a professional, which is questionable at times too. But at least we're not dealing with it.
Right.
Yeah, tonight I'll drive down there, spend the night, and do a class tomorrow all day and exams, and then come home. And then next week, well, not next, actually, the following week, we were just talking about that, I go back to Nashville to take more classes for my national exam.
Woo.
Yeah.
You're just always learning and growing. It's a never ending
moment of silence. What did you say? Yeah. I think for the size of the company we are, you got to make sure you have all the accreditation. You have to have all your licenses. You have to have all your education in line, because you don't ever want to go to a job and be like, I can't do that because I don't have this certification. And there's a bunch of little add-ons, that just make you more well-rounded company, and I think that making sure to keep up with that, and it's tricky to learn what you actually even need at times. I mean, it kind of comes up when you're like, hey, filling out this big permit, and they're like, where's your RLD number? And you're like, what's that? Or you're doing a SWIP and, for DEQ, and, there's not really a certification on that, but there's training in order to do it right. And I might overdo it, but I ain't messing around with that documentation. I want it to be overdone. I don't want any holes in any of the work I do. It's pretty important, the education piece. I just finished up with my apprentice from VTech.
Oh, nice.
Judge.
Yeah. Now he's going to be your competition because he's so good at what he does already.
Let's go. He's actually a state champion wrestler, so I'll probably just run as fast as I can from him if he is trying to compete, and then I'll get too tired and fall down, and he'll just wrestle me to death.
Put you in a sleeper lock.
Yeah, which is probably what I need. I need to get some sleep. No, Judge is the man. I was really impressed by him. And I don't know what the other apprentices like, if they're just punching time or doing whatever, but and I really didn't know how many exact like meetings we were supposed to have. We just kind of went weekly, and then it kind of got to the tail end and his school is finishing and he said I'd like to meet one more time before. And I thought that was really cool because I could see as a 19-year-old student being like, cool, man, thanks, bro, I'm going summer break.
Yeah.
And he's like, I want to meet one more time. And I was impressed. And I told him, I was like, this isn't the end of our internship. This is the beginning of a friendship, you know. And you can call me in 1 week, 1 year, 10 years. Well, not 100 years, but, you know, you can call me and I'll pick up the phone if you're starting a business and you have a question, or maybe I have a question for you. You know, he's very ambitious, cool guy. It was fun for me to teach somebody the things I've learned. I just enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah.
You know, so we'll see. He wants to get into building out of college. He's already doing it. You know, he bought a property and he's renovating it while he's in school, you know, as an investment. And I'm like, that's pretty badass.
If you're that young and you're already passionate about something like that, you got to just keep riding, keep going for it. And then getting an apprenticeship, that turns into a friendship and a mentorship that can last years down the road. That's so valuable.
Yeah, he's probably going to be a secret weapon one day.
Yeah.
Judge.
Call
him in.
Put the bad contractors in sleeper holds.
Call in the hounds. I'll just locking up every
young
contractor.
guns.
He is going to be good. He's just got all of the stuff. He's attentive. He's smart. He's already doing it. He's interested. He's asking a lot of questions. I rarely meet kids that are like asking me the types of questions that he did, you know. So I'm pretty stoked on it. It was a good meeting. The last meeting was basically like, you know, a rundown of what we talked about and, you know, taking steps of what his idea of what his business was going to be like and giving him the last little tidbits of things. And I told him all the time, like, everything I say is just my opinion. I'm not trying to force feed it. I'm not saying this is how it has to be done. This is my opinion based on what I've learned in my company, you know, and I want you to be really clear. Like, you don't have to go out and try to mimic exactly what I do at all by any means. It's your choice, you know, but this is what I've learned along the way, you know, and me and Courtney talked about that yesterday, and we have a job with some minor issues, you know, things that we forgot to put in the estimate, and we're eating it. And I was like, you know, it sucks, but the truth of the matter is if we don't learn from it, then it really sucks. And if we use it as a learning experience, we're actually paying for somewhat of an education on what we need to do better. And so I got to train my mind to think of it that way, because I can get resentful and hate everything about whatever's going on, and then it just makes it harder. It's not Friday, it's Thursday because of my class. And so I don't have as much to talk about because I haven't made it through my week yet. Thursdays are usually the biggest day, man.
Oh, man. Well, I appreciate you making time to sit down before
it's fun.
The end of the week. I thought we could maybe talk about something that I think is of huge value to understand as somebody coming in interested in working with Omnibuild. And maybe even some of the people that work in construction, just in general, how people approach the estimation. Let's say I potentially want to build with Omnibuild. I got a dream home. I got an average amount of money ready. Maybe I've got some land, but I've never built a house. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm nervous about the money. I want it to be in budget, but I want it to be a dream house.
Yep.
I don't even know what my dream house is, really. I might have a few ideas.
Yeah.
How are you wrangling people in the estimation process, and how do you bid out projects to the average home building consumer?
There's lots of variables with that. It's not just a simple method. You know, so like new customer walks in, like on the phone, and they say, "Hey, we want to build a new house." Send out new client form, you know, which is basically like an outline of questions that we've come up with, and you don't have to answer them all. Some people just write their name, in their email. So we have that, and we set up a meeting. But we do ask a series of questions, including budget, which we just put that in there because if somebody says, yes, my budget is $100,000, no ifs, ands, or buts, and then they send us a $300,000 plan, it very quickly brings us to like, this is going to be outside of the range. We're going to either need to redesign or you're going to have to figure out a way to come up with some more funds for this, and so we don't expect everybody to answer the budget line, but it's helpful in the process, and so the process goes that form, and typically that form covers enough to do a free estimate. And if it doesn't cover enough to do the free estimate, then usually somebody follows up with a phone call. And we ask some questions and, try to get a little more optics on, what it is we're looking at doing for these people. And then we do a free estimate. And the free estimate's a broad stroke. It's a very broad stroke because you'll have a lot of people after the free estimate say, well, how much did you figure for foundation? And did you figure stone countertops or wood floors or things like that? And it's a tricky thing because we haven't taken it to that level yet. We've taken the job that you've given us, whether it's on the back of a napkin or a lot of times it's a screenshot online. So it's a floor plan and an elevation from online. And there's no dimensions really. We're just trying to come up with dimensions with our software of what we think it is. And sometimes online it does say this is 1,280 square feet, So we take the last 5 to 7 jobs we've done that are similar to that job and we do an average of square foot price. And we say, okay, well, this house is around this. And people say, well, are you just bidding square foot? If that's how you're doing it? No, it's just a jumping off point. It gives all of us the opportunity to say, is this over your budget? Is it under your budget? What are some of the complicated features of the house? Because in that time, we'll break out square footage. But if there's like a timber frame or a big fireplace or huge deck or garage, those things are broken out separately as items. They're still based on square footage or past numbers. And then you can look at those components to see how they affect the budget. And that's typically the free estimate. So in that time, that allows everybody, and we try to turn that around in like 2 to 4 weeks, but we're working on our process with that because, you're anxious. I mean, when you decide to build a home, it's a really big deal. I mean, or a remodel, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of pressure, to figure out what it is you actually want, all those things. And so, it's not just like, oh yeah, we're just going to casually do this. And some people are, and this is their second home or something. And so it's more casual, but most of the time it's like, this is a big decision. It's the biggest one I'm going to make in my life besides my kids and my education and my wife or husband or something like that. It's pretty large scale. And buying a car is, probably the next thing of like making that the financial commitment and stuff like that. But the house is huge. So we try to take that on as like an important piece for us. Like what does this represent? Is this their childhood land that they grew up on, that they were gifted or bought from their family? Or is this their dream place to move to because of the schools or the Friday night jamboree or whatever is going on? And so, in that free estimate, we tried to take into consideration, we try to pull things up on maps and study the land to see what a road might look like or anything like that. We submit the free estimate. We follow up with a phone call or an email just to not just submit it and say, oh, think about that. And then that usually sparks the next conversation of like, all right, now that we've gotten there, what are your feelings? Oh, it's too much. Okay. Well, let's see what we can do to adjust this number. Do we finish the basement or not? Do we pull a chimney out or do we leave it? Or, do we change the whole floor plan or look for a different house design that's smaller. Do we redesign? So this house has all the elements that I want, but there's some unusable space. So do we redesign to save that way? Which, architectural work is very, I think people get nervous about architectural work because you're like, oh God, architect is expensive. And they might be, but you might hire an architect for $10,000 to draw you a set of plans and they save you $80,000 on a drawing because they were able to shrink down square footage and actually do the things you wanted enough to save the square footage cost, overall size of the home. And so I try to explain that to people, and sometimes it doesn't work that way. Sometimes you go to design and it's like kids in a candy shop and they're painting this picture of this view and this porch and this cascading everything. And you're like, yeah. And then you get the price and you're like, oh God. And you're like, it's too much. And so we try to monitor that to keep it in a range, or do the best of our ability. But once we do the free estimate, we follow up with a phone call. And sometimes people say, well, I want to spend a little more. I want a garage. I want a barn. I want a fence. So, so you'll hit that number on the house and they'll be like, cool, it fit in budget. Now I want to add all these other things that I want to do. And so we usually go into consulting at that phase. And at that phase, we're under contract to work hourly to come up with the design, to come up with a price that's more itemized. And what we try to do at that point is you meet with Haley and Olivia, and they do a really good job, and Spencer and Ian, young Ian, not old Ian. You meet with those crew, and they'll kind of go over, you'll have an hour to 4 hour meeting with them to discuss what you envision in your house. Drywall or carpeted walls, like ceilings, wood or drywall, what type of floors, countertops, driveway, all those things. And so they're making a big list and they upload it into our software. And then we try to match costs with those things in real time. So if somebody says, I have to have 24-inch wide oak flooring, we've never done that. We'll look it up and see what it kind of takes to do. And then we'll put it in the budget. And so that takes a little more time because we're developing plans, we're researching information, and we're not only just estimating at that time. At this point, we feel pretty confident we're going to work together. The client feels confident enough to sign a consulting agreement. We feel confident enough because we've done some of the initial proof work that this house that they're interested in matches their budget. So we've made a mutual agreement to move forward based on that. Start doing that fuller estimate. Some clients it's 50 meetings and some it's one after that, just depends on their ability to make decisions. I mean, we have clients that are like, bring me a list of every decision I need. Let's go through it item by item. And we do that and we're done, and it's really easy. Some clients in that initial meeting after the free estimate, we get everything. I mean, it's just pretty straightforward. So it just depends, Some people are so intimidated about billing and don't know anything about it that they don't even know what we're going to ask or how to respond. So they'll leave that meeting, watch a YouTube video, start saying, okay, well, I got to think about my ceiling color. And it's the first time they've looked at their ceilings in their house thinking of a ceiling color. They've looked at the ceilings because you walk around your house and look around, but you may start looking at the place you currently live in a different way because you're thinking about those decisions. So it just depends how many meetings you're going to have. So then we kind of itemize out the estimate, and then we have a new estimate that is more based on your project. And what we've done since COVID is we've changed our format to cost plus. So we do a full estimate. It is in the contract cost, but it is cost plus. And so we have real-time billing, and we bill every month. And if we don't get paid every month, which we really try to do that, we still send an outline monthly to go over what it is we're doing. And so what happens at that point is if we have overruns in categories, those overruns are shown monthly, and we can talk about it. What happened, and on new construction, we try really hard to not have that, because we've really thought about it. We've thought about how we're building this thing, and it's a little bit clearer. On remodels, it's very hard because you just don't know what you're going to find. I mean, we have a remodel going on now where everything we've touched has had an issue, and it's unfortunate. It's hard to predict because until you start cutting in, you don't really know what you're getting into, and things keep changing. And so it's very tricky to keep a fluid number going, and we do the best of our ability to alert as we go. But on the new construction, it's a little bit easier because you picked out the flooring, you picked out the windows. Those are set numbers that we've got prices on, and they don't tend to go over, but they can incrementally. And we try to work that out in the estimates with other areas. Like, how can we do the excavation for a little bit more or a little less, to make up for this, or can we talk to our roofer to get a little bit of a discount or help, or say we'll get rid of the trash, or something. We try to be creative to kind of honor those numbers. I kind of got into the weeds a little bit with that. But that estimate that we charge for is also building the entire strategy for the house. You've been assigned a project manager. The framing superintendent has looked over your plans. The superintendent that handles the earthwork and the foundation has looked over your plans. Haley and Olivia have built out all the things that we're including in your house. Spencer has outlined the estimate. So we know how we're going to do this. It's a big part of our administration of not rolling out of the job and being like, yeah, let's get started on this. We know we're hitting the ground running. And so it's building a set of drawings, whether we're buying them online or using what they have or drawing ourselves. So at that point, we have this new estimate that is broken out in lots of categories. You can look at, there's no hidden agendas. There's no like weird buried costs. And we go over that estimate. And depending on how that goes, somebody may say, well, I need to save $5,000. And you say, okay, this is how we can do it. We can use a lesser grade cabinet. We can change countertops. We can change flooring. We could not do a wood ceiling. And so we give options to do that, and then once we get good on all that, then, well, we've picked out a house site at this point. We've worked out how it's going to fit into the property. There's a lot of steps, and we agree on that, and we sign a contract. And the cool thing about the big estimate is we're doing a very custom home right now, and there's a lot of add-ons that we're keeping outside of the scope of work so that the house always stays at that number. And so, the client's great. They're like, hey, we want stained concrete. Okay, well, we'll look it up. It's not included in the estimate originally because we're only talking about it now, or maybe we did, but we decided not to add it yet. We get a price on the stained concrete, and they give an opportunity to understand if it's worth it. And they say, it's not really worth it at that cost. Great. We don't have to do it. Not do it, bill later, so the communication piece with the client is critically important, and that's why we try to bill every month. It's not just to get money every month. It's to open up the conversation to say, these things are overrunning. You're changing a lot. There's all these little issues, it's affecting the budget, so that we're dealing with it on a monthly basis as opposed to like a quarterly or whatever basis, and then it also makes the job really real for clients so that they're paying, and, it gets very exciting. I fall victim to it when I'm remodeling my own house, and I'm like, yeah. And I see that I've taken a loan out for $100,000. I got it all. And then I'm like, I can upgrade. And then I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can, So the monthly talks are huge. It's tricky because even with all that, you still have problems, and you still have cost issues that creep up, and remodels especially. It's very tricky. Very tricky. I mean, we constantly say we might not do remodels anymore, but it's a big part of our company. It's a big part of our community efforts, to be a part of the community. And at the end of the day, I tell people I just want to be friends at the end of the job. I don't want to sugarcoat things, and try to win people over in the beginning and then hammer it down at the end. I don't enjoy that process at all. And, it also gives us opportunities to beat numbers in our estimate as well. So we have estimates now where a lot of categories and projects we're working on show green. I mean, that's areas that we come in under. And clients have the opportunity to view all that. It's intimidating. We tried to do the best at being transparent about it. We try to do our best at aligning people with the right people in our office to kind of get those questions answered, but it's always tricky. I mean, we had a big job that we worked on for over a year. We've drawn plans, we've estimated, we even felt recently like, hey, let's modify the estimate a little bit and let's make it a little bit bigger and do the things we want. And we're like, okay. And at that point, it feels pretty clear that we're doing this thing. And then they say, we're not doing it. And you're like, oh my gosh. And it is tough, but ultimately it's their decision. And I don't get upset about it. It's kind of like a bummer because when you go through the process of estimating and designing and looking at land and laying it out, you start embracing that vision too. And you can see this patio overlooking this little waterfall and this huge tree. And you're like, this is going to be monumental. I mean, this is going to be so beautiful. I say it all the time on jobs. I'm like, this is insane. Like, we're doing this retreat center right now, and we've just laid out the walkways and the paths and these water features and all this stuff. And I'm not kidding. And I said this yesterday. I was like, this is probably going to be the nicest retreat center in the freaking world. I don't even know. It's so nice. And the way that everything's worked out, and Noah and the client really are like the ones that made that happen, and we have an architect working on it too. But I'd say Noah, with as far as like the placement of the buildings and the pathways and all that stuff, it's just incredible. It really is. I mean, it's something that I can't wait to show people. It's just going to be super cool, and that's an interesting job. It's a really hard job to budget, and, some people just know what they want. And you just say things like, look, we can spend the next year budgeting this job out, or we could just get going and do transparent billing and talk about every decision that we make. Every decision we decide to do, how much is this going to cost? And we say it's going to be roughly this. And we have this honest going relationship, and that works too in certain circumstances. Somebody just wants to get going and they don't want to spend all the time. And they've been fortunate enough to be able to be in that position to do that. And it makes jobs very smooth when that happens, because you can just kind of roll with the punches, and there's a trust that starts to build that is a cool thing to be a part of. I mean, every time you're in a trusting relationship, it's like, all right, it feels good. It's like, so, it's complicated because builders have a reputation of charging more or not doing as good as work or different things like that. And cost plus is sometimes a bad word. But I think we found a way to do it right. I mean, we did a big job, high level of execution in the middle of a freaking golf course, with a really strict timeline, all these things. And, we beat the budget on it. It was awesome. It was super complex. It was moving a building across a golf course, and to beat a budget on a project like that, I mean, it's that's pretty cool. And that doesn't always happen. I mean, we have a job now that's really difficult, and it's a remodel, and we're doing our best. And it's just one of these ones that's like, we're going to get through it and we're going to do a really good job, but it's been painful on the process to get there. And all we can do is be as descriptive of what's going on that we can, and keep doing our best and trying to find ways to save money if it's possible. So, I mean, I hope that kind of answers some of it.
There's different types of buyers you're going to find in your estimation process. You're bringing in people that are very green and are just ready to build their dream with transparent billing
That
and
rhymes.
ready to go. What's that?
Very green and trying to build their dream. Doesn't that rhyme?
And that's probably your dream client, like somebody who could just, trust you guys to do it.
Sure.
And you guys have a trusting path forward. And then I would say those are probably more rare. Those are like the
They're very
unicorn
rare.
clients.
Then
the average client, the more likely client, is somebody who's ready to finally build their house, and maybe they're taking a loan out or something like that to pay as they go. Once they get past that free estimate, that's the first friction point. They got a free estimate. They didn't have to pay anything for it.
Mm-mm.
Now they know, oh, this is over budget. Or this is not as much as I want to spend.
Sure.
Whatever it might be. Now they have a decision to make. There's a consulting phase.
Yep.
It costs X amount of dollars, X amount of hours to go in, depending on how many meetings, I'm guessing, or maybe it's a flat rate.
It's not a flat rate. It's an hourly.
Yeah, so it's an adjusted rate based on how much consulting they're willing to invest in, because that's like the first phase of investing.
Yeah, and the hourly rate's nice because if you're on a budget and you're getting a bill every month for the hourly rate, it will help you make decisions rather than come in to brains. If you're on a budget, which is totally fine. I'm on a budget on the projects I do for myself, so I know exactly what that feels like. And so if you're on a budget and you have an hourly rate to come up with your decisions with us, you can have all the decisions yourself and give them to us. And then there's very minimal amount of time. I think that hourly rate is a good temperature gauge for somebody to say, I've got to go home and do more homework so that I'm more prepared for these meetings so I don't have to. And some people enjoy it. Some people want to spend 1,000, I'm not necessarily 1,000, but 100 hours, meeting with Haley and Olivia because they enjoy the process. They're getting a lot out of it, and Olivia and Haley are helping show them options, like show me all the paint colors, and we've also been working with Stephanie, who does interior design work, and the same thing. She can present all sorts of things, and some people, that is their experience that they want. They have set aside enough money in that beginning part after the free estimate they've learned, and they say, well, I'm going to set aside $3,000 to give this process full optics, and I can work on it, think about it, work with the team, and they enjoy that process. And so it is totally like what the client wants, and we try to help figure that out. We don't ever want to be like, all right, you got 100 hours and here you go. We want to try to figure out, we want to tell them in meetings like, hey, it's going to be charged, so we could do a 30-hour meeting or a 3-hour meeting, and probably get the same amount done. And some people are like, nope, I want to spend the money. And some people are like, I've figured out everything I want, and we can get out of that meeting in 30 minutes. So it's a very big swing. And honestly, we cater to more clients on a budget than we do the opposite by far. And, the estimates that we give have to match for loans, which we do all the time, work with banks. They have to match appraisals. So we can't just go insane on costs. We got to find ways to make them work. And we're working with a young guy now. He's awesome. He's a vet. And he found a house plan that really spoke to him online, and it was out of his price range. And so instead, he felt comfortable enough with us and our description to say, well, okay, how do I get it in budget? And that's a cool thing because we know that he already feels good about working with us and we've established some trust already. And that always feels like a good thing. And then now we're saying, okay, well, we can probably get there by doing this, this, and this. And that's what Spencer's really good at, you know? And so we're getting back into the zone where it's comfortable for him. And we're probably going to build that person's house, you know, because we've given enough attention. That we have a lot of people in the office, you know, and they're all there for a good reason. It's all part of making that experience worthwhile. You know, and we talked about it last week on the podcast about growth, you know, and not basing it. And well, for me, my opinion and the way I've done it is I'm not basing my company on a percentage growth. I'm basing it on doing good work and being honest, and then it grows naturally, you know. And so we get most of the jobs. I mean, there was a time in our career where we got 90% of the jobs we looked at. There wasn't as many builders around. There wasn't as many options, so that probably was a big factor in it. And we weren't as busy, so there would be a lot more of my attention, which I think people like that attention from the owner. You know, it's kind of a big thing. And now I'd say, I don't know what the percentage is, but it's not 90. And it's okay. It took me a long time to get over. I felt personal every time. I'm like, not to the client not using us, but like for me, I'm like, oh man, what the heck? My life's over. You know, I just moved to Alaska and fish, you know, but that's just my head. And I have to be careful of that, you know, and I know that I'm just one stop on the tracks. There's a bunch of others out there, and you need to see what stop fits you the best and which one has the best views.
Right. And when people come to you for that free estimate, you probably get some ghosting, people that don't ever return it or fill out the thing. And then maybe you give them their bid and they're say that's way too high and they're not ready to do consulting.
Yeah.
But then there's the next level. That's probably that more personal level because now you've invited them in for consulting.
Yeah.
You're working with them professionally, personally, kind of envisioning the dream. You're not only selling them on the dream, you're part of it now. You're like, oh yeah, that waterfall in the tree, it's going to be beautiful.
Yeah.
Best job ever.
I know.
And then you get through a consulting phase. You've got some plans.
Yeah.
Maybe some permits.
Yeah.
I don't know how far you go until someone is a sure yes and they signed a contract, but I imagine that that's still not, there's a smaller percentage of people that walk away at that point.
Smaller percentage,
but I bet
sure.
that's the percentage that can be tricky as a...
It is.
Because you're just like, you went through a huge process, a lot of energy.
Very, very tricky. We've had one recently, and it was really heartbreaking, you know, for me, because I really care about these people. I actually we went out to my land and did a drive around and hung out, and my whole family was there, and you know, and their family was there, most of it, and it wasn't about there's no animosity or hard feelings. It was just emotional because I saw myself doing that job, and not for the monetary gain necessarily. It was I when I get to that place on a job, I vision myself driving in and seeing the construction happening and the whole vision, and I'm marrying myself to that, because if I don't do that, I'm not giving everything what it needs, you know. And I've got to really immerse myself, and it's dangerous for me. It's not for the client necessarily, but for me, when I'm bidding a job, I'm acting like I got it. I have to for myself. And some people are like, man, don't count your hens until they hatch or whatever. And this is only the way that I do it. So please don't do it if it doesn't work for you. It's just what I do. I have to believe that I've got this thing, you know, and I'm not turning out a bazillion estimates. I'm not going online and trying to get every estimate that I can possibly get out. I'm selective of the ones that we choose as a team, you know, because it's not just my decision either. But I'm really we've lost some big jobs recently. And I was convinced myself that I was getting those. And so I do have to take a couple days to decompress, and I don't go and not work, but I might be more quiet or whatever as I'm working through that. And Rye is really helpful with my kids, for that, because I can get distracted in a good way, of being a part of my family. And I think Rye and Esma and Colden know when those times I'm in those times, and I think they know when they, need to pick up a little bit and be like, you okay? Whatever. And it makes me feel good. And same thing in the office, Spencer pulled me to the side the other night and had a really good meeting with me, about checking in with me, which doesn't happen that often. It's so moving but it meant a lot to me. And, Ian Riley texted me last night, when we were texting, and I was like, I got to take an emergency class. And he's like, I hope everything's okay. And I was like, that's really nice that like they're concerned with where I'm at. And I think it's because I'm concerned with where they're at too. And, I have a very, 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 very close friend that I've been very close with for a long time, and we've worked together and stuff like that. And she messaged me or called, and we talked for a minute, and she's like, I do like to talk more. And I felt bad because I haven't been as in touch. And I was like, wow, I'm not making enough time for the things that are important in my life. And I realized, and I like having people around me that say things like that, because it gets me in check. And I'm an overly compassionate person. Somebody calls, says, my truck's broke down, go get one of my trucks. It's a little bit tough because at some points I'm like, should I have done that? and for me, it's a reality check of where I'm at, like being compassionate and putting out a lot, because I get a lot out of my relationships with the people that I'm close with, of checking in, doing things with me, doing things for me, and not like huge things like, gift giving and all that, but like whatever it is. I'll come out to land, help you for a couple hours, do something, and we talk, and it's like this cool thing. And like what I used to say about Abel all the time is, it was like our partnership went from two badasses working really hard together and getting a lot done to very much so Abel being the voice of reason on my shoulder. And it wasn't like he said, hey, Matt, don't do that. It was like every time I was thinking about doing something, I'm like, oh, crap. How am I going to explain that to him? And then having good friends that call you out to say, you haven't been calling as much. Can we connect a little more, or whatever they say? To me, that's like check moments of like, oh, all right, time to check in with myself, make sure, and Spencer, and then my team rallies around me, dude. Like, I mean, I've got the best team I think there is. I'm constantly saying, I'm like, our team would win against any other team. And not because we're better or stronger or faster or anything like that. We are connected. We are all a part of it. And that's what makes it work. So I think it's a cool thing.
Well, like attracts like, and you have such a high esteem for quality and making sure what you're providing is like the highest level that it can be.
Yeah.
And so as you bring in more people, they're attracted to that.
Yeah.
And your employees are attracted to that, and they want to strive to be the best and maintain that Omnibuild premium service and product that you provide. And so I think you're also attracting clients that want that too. They want that, and you probably want to get every client and say yes to them and build them their dream, but I'm sure there's like obvious no's that come in. I know I have them in video, and it's hard to say no with to a client, because I want the work and I want to do a good job and I want to make them happy. But some people just straight up don't have the budget or are going to be too complicated with the limited budget they have, that it's going to like almost burn me out in the process and what I do.
Yeah.
So I imagine, like, do you guys have like red flags that you're looking for in potential clients that are asking
Yeah.
and interested in working with Omnibuild?
No, never.
Next question.
Well, first, before I do, I want to shout out Stewart Concrete.
Yeah.
Cool people. James and Elwood. I mean, there's a lot of drivers and other people involved, but they have been there for me for a very long time, and they are the best. And James, thank you for everything you've done. But yes, to answer your question, it's tricky. So it's a loaded question. There's multiple avenues with that can be answered. You have the client that you don't want to work with because you're nervous about what and who they are and how your personalities might be together. Because the truth is there's sick people out in the world, and some people we don't want to work for. And that's just a cold, hard truth. And that is a rare occasion. But it does happen. And I have worked for some difficult people that I regretted working for. But I did it and we got through it. So figuring that out's very tricky. Very, very tricky, because I always want to try to find a way to work with everybody. And I'm always like the people pleaser type person of like, I can get through this and I can help them figure it out. And that's bullcrap, dude. Like sometimes people's path are their path. And a lot of people in my company will say, this had this weird meeting with them. And those are the things that I need to think more about. And I'm usually like, it's okay. But if I say, it's okay, like 3 times, I probably need to look in the mirror. There's this old saying, and I might be saying it wrong, but like if one person calls you a red truck, like, you might not be a red truck. They might have had a bad day or have a bug stuck in their eye. If 2 people call you a red truck, it's like, wow, they got bugs in both eyes, or what's going on here? But when the 3rd person calls you a red truck, you might actually be a red truck, and you might need to look in the mirror, and so when
bug in your 3rd eye.
Yeah, it's like,
oh yeah, that was a farmer saying for sure. I shouldn't have brought the hippie stuff
just
up.
kidding. But the long and the short is what I'm getting at with that is if like multiple people in my company say, I don't know if this is the right fit for us, I probably need to like pump the brakes and think about what they're saying. Because I will say in the past when that's happened and I've done the job anyway, it has bit me pretty hard. And it's not necessarily the client. Sometimes it's complexity of the job, So that's one aspect of figuring out clients. That is also a rare occasion, but it happens and we need to be really aware of it. And then we need to find a way to be like, this is not a right fit for us, because I still feel like honesty is the best policy rather than bidding it too high or doing the other things to get out of the job. And then I think the budget question comes up pretty naturally. I mean, when we do a free estimate and a client's like, I'm not going to be able to afford that. That's pretty clear. And I don't think we get into most jobs so far that they're like, well, you said 400,000 and we're still at 400 and I was hoping to be at 200, so that doesn't really happen. I think you do get clients that you give them a quote for 350 and you have your line items of costs and then they try to beat every number and they do get it down. I mean, we had a client say 50 grand. He's an animal, dude. He I'm gonna shout him out too, but he shopped all of his stuff. And he said, I'm gonna find tile for cheaper. He found tile for like 1 cent a tile and like drove all over and bought it and saved a bunch of money, and every opportunity he had to try to find a good way to save, he did, and he really did it. And I was very impressed because it doesn't happen that often. And I think he was retired and I think he was enjoying it, not like a game show of like, I got to beat that number to win the car at the end. It's more like, I've got the time and the energy and capacity that I'm going to dedicate this year of my life to my home build, and I am going to do everything I can to beat numbers. And it came out great. He's the man. His name's Paul and his wife's Ada, and he shouted us out online the other day. He posted this cool pictures 10 years ago. We built this house, and he's standing in the window, and he's looking out, but it's all framing. And it was his memory of 10 years ago. And I was like, that's pretty cool. Like, he wanted to post that because that was that big of a moment in his life to build his forever home, and it was just a cool thing. And to know what he went through, like he got involved with all the decisions down to the little details to find ways to be creative. And it really worked out well. And I've shown that house a lot. And I think I showed it a lot because I thought it was a good example of a way to get what you need under a good budget. It's a very good budget conscious house. And it was a good one. And he's a life friend. He's a great guy, and that's what you want out of those things. And so, those projects is I want to end on a good note and be friends. Even with the people that cancel and that we go all the way down the road with, I still want to be friends with them at the end. But to go back to your question, we try to weed people out that we think are going to be a bad match for us. We try to weed jobs out that are just not great jobs for us. Like, there's just jobs that we're not going to be able to perform well at because it's not what we do normally, and I don't really know how to say what that is. It might be a mobile home. We don't work on many mobile homes. So there's people out there that do a lot of work on mobile homes. So we're trying to relearn a new thing. It's just not a good fit. Not because it's a mobile home, but just because we don't do mobile home windows and mobile home plumbing and stuff, and it's different. And there's people out there that do that regularly, and that's a better fit for them. I'd say most of the time, as far as it goes with the budget, we're pretty honest. And I had a client years ago that they wanted the house for $300, and I'm like, it's gonna be $360. That house that you want, I can't do it for less. And they found somebody that did it for $360, and they were over budget. Like by a lot. And I think that person, based on all the most simplistic materials, linoleum flooring and, everything you can do. And they didn't want that. And I knew that from my questions. And it was a very hard thing. And she was upset with me that I couldn't do it for that number. And she came back and said, I'm sorry. Like, I may have said some things, and I thought that was a really cool thing, and I didn't hold it against her. And I was like, it happens, and I'm sorry it didn't work out the way you wanted it to, and I was never trying to force things on you, but I was just trying to keep your budget in mind and try to find a way to do it at a good cost. So, it's tricky.
Can I ask you one more really quick question?
Yeah, better be quick.
It's quick. It's not super loaded.
That's fine.
Before somebody reaches out to Omnibuild to build, what is your advice to people that want to build that have never built, and how can they be ready to be sure that they're a good fit to even fill out that form?
Look at our website and our Instagram and our Facebook, and see the types of projects we're doing. And, there's posts about our employees on there, and check it out and see if it feels like it fits what it is you want to do, Read the reviews. Floyd's a small town. Ask people if they've worked with Omnibuild and what their experience was like, or look at some of the projects we've done, or if you're really interested in building, look at a house and envision yourself living in it and what you would want to see in that house and make notes of it. I tell people, tell me the 4 things that are most important. And a lot of times it's a view, it's efficiency, it's good use of space, open floor plan, think about the things that are important to you, and watch some shows on TV. I mean, I always tell people don't watch HGTV because it's not totally real life, but you still learn about a mantle or a tile or a stone countertop or, what the different surfaces might be, or go visit vendor shops like Rock Fab in Roanoke or Stone Dynamics, and look at kitchens or Ferguson in Roanoke, and look at fixtures and get a gauge, because in your head you might know the faucet you want in the kitchen. You're like, I saw that on Hell's Kitchen and I'm having that. But it might be $2,500 and you might be like, good Lord, what's the $200 version?
Bloody hell.
Yeah. So, I think as much research as you can, but if you also don't even know where to start, just give us a call.
Mm-hmm.
Ask for a meeting with Spencer. Nah. There's no hurt in asking. Like, it may not happen overnight, or try to find my number and call me. We took all the number. Wow. People do it. I was getting texted last night and they're like, I got your number from such and such and blah, blah, blah. They're like going on and on. And I was like, but then I was like, it's exciting. And like, they want to talk and they want to figure out a project, and I just need to text you in the morning. I can't do it tonight, but, I get excited when people are excited about a project. I mean, it's a cool feeling. I mean, that's why I do it. If I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't do it at this level. So
keep rocking.
The rocking and rolling.
Thanks for meeting with me today.
Yeah, no problem. Hopefully I pass my test so I can keep working.
You'll do great. You got a big brain.
I have passed all of them so far to this point. So
you've got a laser brain.
Yeah. Yeah, it is laser-ish.
Guys, half of you are subscribed, half of you aren't. So subscribe. Help the channel grow.
Yeah, I do want to also say that I'm working on a very cool raffle prize for Floyd Fest.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be lit.
It's going to be huge. So I'm partnering potentially with a company in Roanoke for it. I talked to some people there yesterday. So if it happens, I'll talk about it in the podcast, what it is we're raffling. But it's huge. It's a big one, I think.
Yeah.
It's not giving a house away, but it's giving something really cool away.
We're going to be giving your phone number away.
Yeah, that's fine.
Grand prize.
I'll just change it or put blocks on it. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, so keep checking in for that, because that's going to be cool. And I hope to be able to announce it next week. And then we're going to also do details of how to get into the raffle.
Mm-hmm.
But, buy a ticket, come to Floyd Fest, show some local love. It's going to be really cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. Woo. All right.
Later.
Say